It's my privilege to request our chief guest this evening, Mr. Shashi Verma, to deliver the convocation address.
Thank you, Mrs. Hiranandani. Uh, Chairman Shri Sanjay Bhai Lal Bhai, my good friend President Dr. Bimal Patel, faculty and staff of CEPT University who have done such a wonderful job at educating our youngsters, proud parents and family of the graduating students, and most of all, the 532 graduating students today. It's a great honor for me to be here with you today. Dr. Patel asked me to deliver an address. I would like to just focus on some of the things that I've learned through my life and the focus on urbanization that I've had for a large part of my career. Dr. Patel was very generous in the introduction, laying out my career path. But let me just focus on a few aspects of that. Like many, I've stumbled into the world of urbanization, and I found it an utterly fascinating area because of the numerous challenges it presents, and because of the numerous opportunities that come along with those challenges. I found it absolutely fascinating. Dr. Patel outlined how, starting off with a degree in agricultural engineering, I moved to the idea of urbanization with a project in Hyderabad, which was just outstanding. What that project taught me very early in my career is the power of a good idea. And that good idea has shown its results over the last 25 years in Hyderabad. The transformation of that city alone has been absolutely astounding. But having moved away from the idea of urbanization for some time, I came back to the world of urbanization when I joined Transport for London about 18 years ago. Dr. Patel also outlined how Transport for London is the body that is responsible for all transport in London. It's actually unique in the world in integrating all forms of transport to the degree that it does. And not just transport, but also it's a very strong link with the way land use planning is done. And for all of you at CEPT, I don't need to tell you that there is a very strong link between transport planning and land use planning. But the critical question that we should all ask ourselves is, well, why is this important? Why is this something that should be given the pride of place that it deserves? And I think, let me just go back again to a personal story there. Dr. Patel said that I grew up in Ranchi. My grandfather moved to Ranchi in the 1940s, and he moved from a village to a city in the 1920s, so about 90 years ago. Other branches of my family probably moved even a bit earlier than that. That journey from a village to a city is a journey that most people in the world end up making at some point in their history. In developed countries, across Europe and America, even in Japan, you've seen that journey being made a very long time ago. In fact, very few people live dependent upon agriculture. Agriculture is one of those industries that requires very few people to make it productive. But when you compare it with the journey that India is on, and many developing countries, not just India, we're a long distance away from the level of urbanization that we should expect to see in any country. By various measures, between half and 2/3 of India's population still lives in the village, is still reliant upon agriculture and related activities. And this journey of urbanization is yet to complete in India. In fact, we are probably no more than halfway through the journey of urbanization. So what have I learned through my career that influences my thinking about what should be happening here? Very early in the work that I was doing at Transport for London, I was working on this project called Crossrail. It's a huge project to build the next railway line in London. And it forced us to think carefully about why investment of that size or scale should be made, especially in a city that is not short of infrastructure. There are more metro railway lines in London alone than in all of India put together, even today. So why add to that kind of infrastructure? And it forced us to think carefully about the economics of cities. What is it that makes people leave their villages and go to cities? The answer is almost obvious and in front of us. Cities are the absolute engines of the economy. They are the ones that create economic opportunities. They are the ones that create productivity. And that's why they have been a magnet for human civilization for many thousands of years now. From the very first cities that came up about 5,000 years onwards, the path of urbanization has never stopped. And it's that link of greater productivity that draws people to cities that is so important to understand. Urbanization is not just a random factor. It happens because of the economic weight of cities creating the productivity that they do. That is the challenge in India as well. Now, some of us who grew up in the 1970s and 80s will remember cities in India being much more pleasant places to live. That's not the case today. Cities are congested, they're polluted, they create all kinds of hassle. People still stream into the cities despite all of those things because of the hassles that they have to face in moving from a village to an urban area. But think about a world that could be very different. Think about a world in which cities were not creating the hassle, but were still creating the opportunity. That would be a world that creates not just the challenge of urbanization, but also the opportunity of urbanization. If we could only move everybody from a village to a city and be as productive as cities are, India's economy would be probably 5 times, maybe even more, bigger than it is today. There is no other economic trick that's available in developing countries that would create that kind of economic growth, except for urbanization. So when we look at the challenge of urbanization in India, it is the biggest challenge. It's also the biggest opportunity. Let me outline what the challenge is. If we think cities are challenging today, an urban population has to double in the next 20 or 30 years. In fact, urban population will double in India in the timeline of your own careers. As graduating students, by the time you finish your career, India's urban population will be twice what it is today. So if you think cities are a challenge today, just remember, or just think about what that challenge would look like if you were layering another city on top of the city that you're in. Just think of Ahmedabad, the city that you're in. What if you were layering another on top of today? That indeed is the challenge of urbanization. That is the challenge that we need to overcome to create the economic opportunity that exists from urbanization. A lot of research was done in the context of Crossrail. A lot of primary economic research was done to demonstrate what the value of urbanization is. Fundamentally, cities exist because they create economic opportunity, as I've just said. To enable that to happen, we need to overcome a few things. First is that we associate density with congestion. That does not need to be the case. There are very dense cities that are not congested. In fact, if you look at the urban centers of any of the leading financial centers in the world, whether that's London or New York, they're at a level of density that does not exist anywhere in India. But they don't suffer from congestion in the way that many Indian cities do. So tackling this question of how do we get to density without getting to congestion is really important. What density then permits is face-to-face and closer interaction, which is the source of the productivity improvement that we expect. And this is where careful integration of land use planning and transport planning becomes really critical. I emphasize this because the education that you have been through at CEPT is fundamentally important to understand that link as a school of planning, as a school of architecture, as a school of technology, as a school of design. These are the skills that are needed in order to bring together all the different aspects that cities need to be able to remain productive. That is the learning of everything that we've done in London for the last 20 years. That is also the learning of my original work at Hyderabad in the 1990s. So as you start on your career, as you embark on your career, I would give you one piece of advice, that if you focus on urbanization as your challenge through your career, you will never be out of a job. This is an issue that will remain important and remain an issue for all the time that you're going to be working. And if there's one thing that you can do, just keep focusing on urbanization. You have to earn a living. You may go off and do other things, and that's perfectly fine. I have not stayed true to my own original education either. But in whatever you do, if there's one thing that I would like you to take away from the education that you've had and from your convocation today, don't forget the value of urbanization, because there is no other trick that's available to create the economic benefits that India and other developing countries need. I'm going to stop there because I frankly just want to leave you with one single message, which is the value of urbanization. I don't want to complicate this with other messages. You have my compliments, and you have my confidence, having armed yourself with a great degree at CEPT, that you will all prosper and flourish. I have never shied away from thinking broadly and thinking imaginatively or thinking big. I've seen the value of big ideas, and I've seen them come productive. I've seen them come through, not just for me, but they've created a huge influence and a huge impact on the people for whom I've been working. That sense of public service and ethos has driven me through my life. If you can imbibe a little bit of that in your career, then that would be absolutely fantastic. Many congratulations for completing your degree today. For all the 532 graduating students, it's a fantastic, fantastic achievement that all of you have. For those of you who are getting awards today, it's an even bigger achievement, but it doesn't diminish the fact that all of you are graduating today with a fantastic degree. It's a credit to you, it's a credit to the faculty, and it's a credit to the people who have supported you through your life, your family and friends who have brought you to this place. Thank you very much, and I wish you very well the absolute best in your careers from today.